Hey guys, remember to check out our saber shop, Fantasy Sabers. It's the first link in the description. Let's start today's story in Palpatine's office on Coruscant. Streaks of sapphire lightning pierce Windu's entire body as he is flung from the window to the streets below and killed. Anakin drops to the floor. What has he done? As a rush of guilt, panic and regret fills his mind. He could almost hear Padme's soft voice, filled with concern, asking why he chose this path. He could see his mother's gentle face, filled with love and disappointment, wondering where she went wrong with raising him. He had just facilitated Windu's death, his superior, a man whose orders he was meant to follow. Anakin knew he had messed up. He had just let his vulnerable emotions take over, and he was going down a path of pain and regret. He made a mistake, and he had to fix it whilst he still could. As Palpatine rises from the windowsill, Anakin immediately swings his blade. Palpatine, with no saber in hand or time to block, moved his hand in front of it and it was sliced from his body. Anakin's mind raced. He had wanted to save Padme, to stop the nightmares of her death that plagued him every night, but in his desperation, he had struck down a Jedi Master, an act that forever stained his soul. He made a terrible mistake, one that he needed to correct before it was too late. Palpatine stretched in pain and used the Force to call another saber from one of his vases. He cursed Anakin, telling him that Padme will now die. Sidious fought with one hand, swinging at Anakin with all of his might, but Anakin's resolve was greater, and with both hands, his strength and ability in the Force was far superior. He could feel the Force guiding him, not with the fear of the dark side, but with warmth and hope of the light. He wasn't fighting with anger, but with purpose. Sidious couldn't hold on, and Anakin killed him. From here, Anakin would contact Yoda on Kashyyyk and inform him of what happened, though he would cloud the truth, explaining that Palpatine killed Windu and he was only barely able to defeat the Dark Lord. Yoda would believe this, as he had no reason not to, and Anakin would keep his deepest and darkest secret hidden for the rest of his life. Bail Organa would consolidate power, informing the Senate of the Chancellor's treachery, and how he was the architect behind the Clone Wars, and that they had been deceived for the last decade. This was a negative blow on the Republic and the reliability of the Senate. Many believed that the Senate was no longer qualified to protect them, and perhaps those people were right. Organa would become the next Supreme Chancellor, and with the Clone Wars over, the galaxy entered a period of peace. Padme would give birth 2 days later to Luke and Leia, with Anakin by her side, and she survived. His nightmares were fictitious, and he believed that remaining in the light changed the outcome of his dreams. The council was extremely upset when they discovered that Anakin was the father of Padme's children, though they would be easily swayed to allow the Chosen One to remain in the Order. Discussions which were primarily led by Obi-Wan and Plo Koon. Firstly, Anakin had defeated the Sith, and he was almost single-handedly responsible for ending the Clone Wars. But also, with Windu killed, there wasn't a Jedi in the Council who severely disliked the boy as much as Mace did. So few counter-arguments were given. Anakin, along with his newborn twins, Luke and Leia, would be welcomed into the Jedi Order. Luke and Leia were the first of a new generation of Jedi. For the first time in history, they were trained as Jedi, but raised alongside their parents. Every other youngling lived at the temple and had no contact with their past lives. But the twins were granted dispensation. They would sleep and spend nights at Padme and Anakin's apartment, and then go into the Jedi Temple in the morning with their father. Anakin and Obi-Wan would begin their training together. Their training began with the basics, learning how to calm their minds and focus through meditation, sensing the Force flowing around them. Anakin taught them saber forms, starting with the simplest, the graceful and defensive Shi Cho, before moving on to more complex techniques. Obi-Wan instructed them in Form 3 Sorsu, emphasizing patience, defense, and control. Luke showed a natural talent for the aggressive strikes of Form 5, Dim So, mirroring Anakin's strength, while Leia quickly mastered nimble maneuvers and elegant flourishes, showing her affinity for Ataru, Form 4. Together, they trained in the temple gardens, where Anakin pushed them to their limits, testing their strength, speed, and agility in mock duels. Obi-Wan emphasized balance, reminding them that strength alone was not enough, and they must also understand the subtleties of the Force. Luke and Leia learned to work together, their movements becoming synchronized and dances of lightsaber strikes and defensive parries, relying on each other's strengths. As they grew stronger, they practiced telekinesis, lifting rocks, droids, and even each other, developing their control and concentration. Through long hours, hard work, and the gentle but firm guidance of Anakin and Obi-Wan, Luke and Leia honed their skills, becoming a formidable pair, each balancing the other's abilities with their own. The bond between them, strong since birth, only deepened as they grew, trained, and learnt together, carrying forward the legacy of the Jedi and the hope for a brighter future. It was clear they were of the Skywalker blood, as the Chosen One's abilities ran thick and their Force powers were inherently strong. The children are now 20 years old, and the galaxy has been under a clear shroud of peace and stability following the end of the Clone Wars. However, deep in the unknown regions, somehow Palpatine returned. 20 years earlier in his duel against Anakin Skywalker, when he realized he was going to die, he transferred his essence into a younger clone of himself. He had only read about it and formulated it with his master's reassurance in case the grand plan went wrong, but this was never tested. It was only on the brink of death that he could successfully move his essence with the Force. And when he awoke inside his younger clone, he knew he had succeeded. He now possessed the same power as before, but on a heightened level. He was young, nimble, strong, and agile. He spent the last 20 years traveling throughout the Sith worlds, from Korriban, Drome and Karth, every place where he could get his hands on as much Darkside knowledge as possible. Finally, he learns of the existence of Exegol, a powerful Sith planet with the power of many. It was here that he created the Final Order, the largest Sith fleet in history. As for the Jedi, Yoda had now passed on, and Anakin assumed the title of Grand Master of the Jedi Order. His children had passed the trials and were now Jedi Knights, both extremely powerful in their own right. Their mother was extremely proud of them, and it appeared as though all of the dark side was gone from the galaxy. A few years after Palpatine's defeat, Ahsoka decided to rejoin the Jedi Order. After seeing a shift in Anakin and the way the Order was run, she knew that this was the version of the Jedi that she could support, and soon after, she was granted the rank of Master and appointed a seat on the High Jedi Council.
Hey guys, did you want to be a Jedi or Sith for Halloween? Then our Halloween bundles from Fantasy Sabers are perfect for you. This includes your own Jedi gown in black or brown, accompanied by an assortment of sabers to choose from at a crazy discounted price. If the costume isn't for you, then we're offering a free belt clip, as well as 10% off every replica and some Padawan sabers with the code Halloween up until the 31st of October. With the belt clip, all you have to do is simply slide the clip on any standard belt, and the saber attaches perfectly through either the D-ring or Kovatek wheel. Please check the product description before you purchase, as there are a few sabers that are not compatible with the belt clip. Check out these deals on our website, the first link in the description.
Deep in the galaxy, Palpatine trained Sith warriors in secret. None of them would take the role of his true apprentice, simply pawns for his pleasure and weapons to inflict pain across the galaxy. There were dozens of them, and each would one day rule his entire fleet of Star Destroyers when the next galactic war began. Among the Sith warriors was Mara Jade, a human with immense force power and arguably the strongest of all the acolytes. Palpatine sent her to Coruscant with perhaps the most important task of all, corrupting Anakin's son, Luke Skywalker. Jade wouldn't be allowed into the Order, being around 20 years old at the time. The opportunity to become a Jedi had long passed, but the Council couldn't deny her that she had immense force power, which she said she had developed herself as a child, after never being picked up by the Order. Mara Jade became a trusted advisor to the Jedi. Although she was not an official member of the Order, she provided valuable assistance on various missions and offered strategic insights, which allowed her to frequently interact with Luke Skywalker. Initially, their meetings were purely professional, but Mara's intelligence and charisma made her an intriguing presence. As they worked together, Mara shared personal stories of her own hardships, creating a bond of empathy and understanding with Luke. At first, they were just friends, but as they talked and worked together, they started to feel something more. They shared their dreams and worries, which made them very close. Luke admired Mara's bravery, and Mara liked how kind and strong Luke was. But this was all a lie, a facade she put on from the orders from her master. As they supported each other, their friendship slowly turned into love. They enjoyed being together, and their feelings for each other grew deeper every day. This growing connection provided Mara with the perfect opportunity to subtly influence Luke. As the relationship developed, Mara began to introduce Luke to ideas that challenged the Jedi's teachings. She spoke about the dark side of the Force, suggesting that it offered a kind of power and freedom that the Jedi's strict code did not allow. Mara described the dark side as a way to overcome limitations and achieve greater strength. She carefully avoided direct confrontation with Jedi principles, but instead planted seeds of doubt in Luke's mind. She suggested that the Jedi were holding him back, and she painted the dark side as a path to realizing his full potential. Luke, who's always been dedicated to the Jedi, started to question their teachings. Mara's gentle influence made the dark side seem more appealing, and Luke began to see the Jedi's restrictions as obstacles to his growth. Eventually, Mara arranged for Luke to meet her master, Emperor Palpatine, in a secret location. The Emperor welcomed Luke with calm authority and began to tell him about the dark side. Palpatine painted a vivid picture of the power that awaited Luke and explained how his father Anakin had failed to reach his potential. He told Luke that Anakin's failure had left a gap that Luke could fill. Palpatine's story was designed to make Luke feel like he had a destiny to fulfill, one that his father had not been able to achieve. He promised Luke that by embracing the dark side, he could gain the strength and power needed to correct the mistakes of the past and make a significant impact on the galaxy. With Mara's support and the Emperor's persuasive words, Luke's doubts about the Jedi grew, and he began to view the dark side as a powerful and necessary path. His shift towards the dark side was a slow process, shaped by Mara's love and manipulation, and Palpatine's convincing promises of power and fulfillment. Palpatine trained Luke to use the dark side of the Force, teaching him to focus on anger and hate for more power. He showed Luke how to turn these strong emotions into powerful and harsh tactics. Under Palpatine's guidance, Luke learned to use the dark side to control and destroy. The Emperor made it clear that only by embracing the dark side could Luke become truly strong. As Luke's skills improved, he relied more on the dark teachings. Each lesson from Palpatine pushed Luke further away from his Jedi values. As Palpatine's final order went into effect, chaos would spread across the galaxy. The footage of Luke fighting with a red lightsaber was broadcast to everyone, shocking everyone who once trusted him. Anakin and Padme watched in horror, their hearts breaking as they realized what their son had become. They were devastated, knowing that their son was leading a campaign against the very people he had once vowed to protect. The Jedi, now facing the full force of the Palpatine's armies, prepared for a desperate fight to save the galaxy. They rallied their forces and began resisting the overwhelming onslaught, determined to fight back against the Final Order. The galaxy was officially plunged into war again, as the Jedi, along with their new galactic army of clones, which had been created with care as to ensure they were only loyal to the Jedi, launched into battle. It was like the Clone Wars, except now Jedi faced dozens of Sith warriors and Star Destroyers double the size of previous Separatist fleets. The fight was far greater. Months would pass and death would reign across the galaxy. As Luke engaged his former family in battle, he wrestled with the light side. He had been turned to the dark side, but his innate being wasn't evil. He was a good person with a good heart who had been manipulated, just like his father decades ago. But he did everything in his power to shut this side of him off, to keep the light out, and to make the dark side his only path. But even in attempting this, his inherent goodness began to seep through, and Mara could see it. Despite how much darkness she felt, she had actually fallen in love with him. As Mara fought alongside Luke, she noticed that he sometimes hesitated and showed kindness, even in tough situations. These small signs made her see that Luke's heart wasn't completely dark. He seemed to be struggling between his dark role and his true self. Mara, who had always been loyal to Palpatine, started to question her own beliefs. The Emperor had once promised her power and control, but Luke's struggle made her think twice. She began to feel torn between staying loyal to Palpatine and her growing sympathy and love for Luke. This inner conflict made it hard for Mara to decide what to do next. Back on Coruscant, Padme had become a wreck, and she didn't know what to do with herself. This war had sent her down a spiral. She needed her children back. Luke had turned to the dark side, and Leia had been away on a siege for months now, with her new apprentice, Jacen Syndulla. Anakin told his wife that they needed to bring Luke back to the light, that there was still good in him. In a moment of weakness, Padme even questions that, explaining that they have seen recordings of him killing innocent and good people. How can you come back from that? Anakin holds his wife's cheeks and he takes a deep breath. Anakin explains what truly happened on the night that Palpatine was first destroyed, the night the Clone Wars ended. He explained that he was driven by the fear of losing Padme to childbirth, and that he had been promised the power of the Darkside in exchange for Padme's safety. As a confused face grazed Padme's cheeks, Anakin explains that he was the one that killed Mace Windu, that he was going to pledge himself to the Darkside and ensure that Padme didn't die in childbirth. Tears fell down her face, but as Anakin revealed his change of heart, how he only realized afterwards the grave mistake he had made, that he began the lifelong journey of fixing his mistake. Anakin knows that Luke can be brought back, just like he was. Padme nods, and the two pack their things to go and find Luke. The council warns against this, saying you can't reason with a Sith, but Anakin disagreed. He takes a small team of Jedi and they go searching for Luke. They know that Palpatine's fleet is hidden on a Sith world, as that is where all of the Final Order's fleet had been pointing towards. While searching the Jedi's restricted section, Anakin stumbles upon a reference to an ancient wayfinder. He discovers that the device, once used by Jedi for tracking hidden locations, is stored in a forgotten section of the archives. After locating and retrieving it, Anakin realizes that it can be used to detect powerful Force signatures. The discovery becomes key in their quest to find Luke. Anakin, Padme, and the small team of Jedi leave at once, traveling to Exegol in a stolen Final Order shuttle. They approach the dark, stormy world of Exegol, navigating through the dangerous space and landing in a hidden, desolate area. Once on the planet, they move swiftly and silently, using their skills to evade and fight off the guards and Sith warriors that patrolled the area. Each step took them closer to their goal as they followed the Force signatures to a heavily guarded fortress. Inside, they faced fierce resistance, but their determination and combined strength allowed them to push through. As they fought through the defenses, their team got smaller until only Anakin and Padme remained, due to Anakin doing everything in his power to protect her. As they reached the inner chambers of the fortress, Anakin's heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. The unmistakable energy of Luke drew him in, leading him to a vast chamber where Luke and Mara Jade stood. Mara Jade's eyes were filled with conflict, watching as father and son faced each other. The sight of his son, dressed in dark robes and wielding a red lightsaber, was both heartbreaking and maddening for Anakin. Anakin and Padme pleaded with their son to come back to them. Luke was torn. His light within him that he had tried so hard to bury was rushing to the surface. He couldn't let it in, he thought to himself. He wouldn't let it in. He removes his lightsaber hilt from his belt. The room was filled with tension as Luke, still under the heavy influence of Palpatine, prepared to face his father in a fierce duel. Anakin approached Luke, trying to keep his emotions under control. He knew that if he fought with full force, he might drive Luke further away from the light that he had inside. Padme stood back in horror as both of their blades ignited. It was her worst nightmare. She couldn't do anything except watch. Instead of attacking aggressively, Anakin engaged Luke in a heated but controlled lightsaber duel. Their blades clashed, sending sparks flying, but Anakin's strikes were measured and carefully aimed to avoid causing serious harm. He used the duel as an opportunity to reach out to his son, hoping to break through the darkness clouding Luke's mind. As the fight continued, Anakin tried to connect with Luke through their shared bond, expressing his love and recounting his own struggles with the dark side. He spoke of his journey from being consumed by darkness to finding redemption. Anakin's words were filled with pain and hope, trying to remind Luke of the good that still existed within him. He told Luke that he had the power to choose a different path, one of light and love, and that he was not doomed to follow Palpatine's will. Luke's inner conflict became more visible as he struggled with his father's words and the dark teachings of Palpatine. Each clash of their sabers seemed to echo his internal battle. As the movements became less certain, the more Anakin spoke, the more Luke's resolve wavered. He began to question the beliefs that he had taught and the path that he was following. The memories of his father's love and the moments of kindness that he had shown him started to pierce through the darkness and that surrounded him. Mara Jade watched the confrontation with growing unease. She had been fiercely loyal to Palpatine, but witnessing the genuine love Anakin had for Luke and Luke's visible struggle made her doubt her own path. Mara had been trained to serve the dark side, but as she saw Luke's conflicts, she realized that her destiny should not be dictated by Palpatine's manipulations. Her own loyalty was tested as she saw Luke struggle against the dark side and felt the weight of her choices. In a decisive moment, Mara intervened. She stepped between Luke and Anakin, stopping Luke from delivering a potentially fatal blow to his father. Mara's own doubts about the dark side spilled out as she revealed her conflicted feelings. She told Luke that they should not be bound by Palpatine's dark teachings and that there was more to their destiny than serving the Emperor's will. Her intervention caused a pause in the battle, allowing Luke to see that there was a way out of the darkness and he did not have to follow the path that Palpatine had laid out for him. The room was filled with a tense silence as Mara's words began to sink in. Luke, still gripping his red lightsaber, looked at his father and then at Mara, who was now revealing her own doubts. The confrontation had shifted from a fierce battle to a moment of deep emotional conflict. Luke's gaze softened as he struggled to reconcile his father's love, Mara's revelations and the teachings that he had been forced to accept. Luke and Mara turned back to the light side of the Force. As the tension in the chamber grew, Anakin, Padme, Luke and Mara watched in shock as multiple fleets of Star Destroyers began to launch into space. The ships, massive and intimidating, departed from Exegol, heading straight towards Coruscant. Unaware of the impending danger, Luke asked a Sith warrior who didn't know that he had turned back to the light. The warrior responded that the Emperor had sent the entire fleet to destroy the Jedi on Coruscant. They all quickly decided they needed to stop the fleet from reaching Coruscant. They stealthily boarded one of the Star Destroyers, hoping to find a way to prevent it from completing its mission. Inside the ship, they remained hidden, not wanting to reveal themselves to the Final Order. As the Star Destroyer approached Coruscant, the city became visible from the bridge. Anakin, Padme, Luke and Mara realized that they had run out of time. They could see the planet's surface below, already buzzing with activity as the fleet prepared to attack. The Star Destroyer entered the planet's orbit and the massive conflict began. Ships and fighters clashed in the skies above Coruscant, and the city was plunged into chaos. Amidst the turmoil, Anakin told Mara to protect Padme at all costs. Meanwhile, Anakin and Luke went searching for Palpatine. He was in his throne room on the Star Destroyer, his personalized warship where he could command the battle. The Emperor confronted them with a sinister smile. He didn't look as Anakin had remembered. He was younger, faster and more powerful. Anakin and Luke ignite their lightsabers and they prepare to attack. Anakin fought with all of his strength and skill, determined to end Palpatine's reign of terror once and for all. The three combatants clashed in the skies as the massive Coruscant battle happened below. The Jedi Council had mounted their defenses as over 10,000 Jedi entered the battle against dozens of Sith warriors. On the Star Destroyer, Palpatine's attacks were powerful and relentless, but Anakin's resolve was unwavering. He fought with precision and focus, trying to end the threat to the galaxy. After a grueling and intense battle, Anakin and Luke managed to overpower Palpatine. With a decisive strike, Anakin cut down the Emperor, watching as Palpatine's form fell to the ground. As Palpatine lay defeated, Anakin saw the familiar sign of the Emperor's essence beginning to transfer. He knew that Palpatine attempted to stay alive in the same way as he did decades earlier. Skywalker reached out through the Force, sensing Palpatine's essence shifting away from Coruscant and towards Exegol. Determined to prevent Palpatine from returning, Anakin took a shuttle from the hangar and went straight back to Exegol, commanding Luke to find his mother. Arriving on Exegol, he found the Emperor's essence already starting to take shape in a new form. It was like there was another human being created through the Force. Anakin knew that he had to act quickly. He confronted the newly formed Palpatine, who was still weak and vulnerable. With no hesitation, Anakin ignited his saber and sliced down the essence transfer, killing Palpatine once and for all and ridding the galaxy of his torment. The battle was over, and the threat of Palpatine was finally extinguished. With the threat gone, Anakin returned to Coruscant. By the time he arrived, the fight was over and the Republic had won, and the final order was destroyed. After the war, the galaxy slowly began to heal. Anakin, Padme, Luke, Leia, and Mara Jade found a new sense of peace and happiness together. Anakin and Padme already had experience in rebuilding the Republic following the war, and they worked hard to ensure that peace would remain for a longer period of time. Anakin and Padme focused on helping to create a better future for their children, while Luke and Leia grew up surrounded by love and guidance. Mara Jade, who had once been lost in darkness, now found a new purpose in helping others and contributing to the galaxy's recovery. Luke would spend the foreseeable future righting his wrongs, and ensuring that he remained in the light. The battles were over, and with the threat of the Darkside gone, the galaxy could finally look forward to a brighter, more hopeful future.
Ignite your imagination with fantasy sabers.
If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin Was Born During the High Republic and What If Vader Cloned Padme. Please check out our saber shop, Fantasy Sabers, for the largest collection of replicas, Padawan sabers, and many more. The link is first in the description. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.